bit of shade, get out of the sun. Oh, am I going to be on camera today?
Sure, why not?
Awesome. All right, I got to be on my best behavior then. There's evidence. All right, come on with me over this way, everybody. We'll gather around right around this area here and chat a little bit. You guys can fill in here if you want to. Come on closer to me. I promise I don't bite. Perfect. All right, can everybody hear me okay? Am I loud enough for everybody in the back? We good? All right, good deal. So, is this anybody's first time at Buffalo Trace? First time here? Lots of first timers. All right, where's everybody from? Where are you guys from?
Shepherdsville.
Shepherdsville, very close. How about you, hon?
Illinois.
Illinois. Louisville.
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Terre Haute. Indiana, right? Yep. Indiana. How about you guys? Indiana as well. How about you, hon?
England.
Maybe longest traveled, I'm guessing. We'll see. How about you guys? St. Louis, England as well?
No, I'm from Louisville.
Louisville, okay. How about you guys?
Chaperone.
You're a chaperone? Oh, so you're responsible for it. Okay, I hear that. Ohio, Colorado, Florida. Nice. All right. Well, I do have some people from Kentucky here, so that's awesome. Usually I don't have very many people from Kentucky on my tour, so welcome, guys. All right, so plan for the day. Oh, by the way, my name is Lynn. I'm going to be your tour guide today. This is my retirement gig, so I only do this a couple of days a week, so bear with me. I haven't been here for a few days, so we'll see how this goes today. Hopefully we won't get lost. I try to bring everybody back that I leave with, so that's my goal. Plan for the day. We are going to explore the barrel to bottle side of the distillery today. So we're going to see where we're doing things like receiving our barrels, filling our barrels, dumping our barrels. We're also going to stop off in Blantons bottling hall and see some bottles of Blantons being filled today. So that'll be how we end it. And then we're going to come back to the visitor center and do our tasting at the end. So like I said, if you have any questions as we're walking around, you make sure that you ask me.
All these buildings being renovated?
Being renovated? No. The only thing when you see things going on, like we may see some cleaning going on, and that's mostly from the flood. Yeah, you're just making some, and pretty much everything now is back to normal. We've got a few areas that we're still kind of working on getting things like floors and walls replaced, like in Warehouse H, but for the most part, everything is back to normal from the flood. And that was just back in April. You guys may have seen back in April, we had a pretty catastrophic flood here. I'll point out some of those water levels as we get to the back of the distillery. It's pretty amazing to think of the amount of water that we had here just a few months ago, and where we are now compared to that. So a little bit of yes, sir.
Was there any bourbon lost during the flood?
So we did lose pallets in the gift shop, like stuff that was already bottled up. If water touched any box of bourbon, even though the bottles inside are sealed up, those all had to be destroyed. So we did have to destroy a lot of that. As far as barrels, that type of thing, we had a lot of barrels that did have water on them. We're in the process of testing those barrels right now. Each one of those barrels has to be tested by our tasting panel and our lab to see if actually any water got into the barrel. The barrels are pretty substantial, so the chances of flood water actually permeating into the barrel that quickly, because the water's only on them for a couple of days, is pretty low. But if water touched that barrel, they do all have to be tested. We don't know yet as far as the number of barrels that will be lost. We haven't got through that process yet. But as far as product in the gift shop, yeah, we did lose quite a bit of that. Yeah. All right, so real quick, just a little bit of general history about the distillery before we head back into the production area. In case you didn't know, we are America's oldest continuously operating distillery, because we have been operating in this location since 1786. So very, very long time. We weren't even Kentucky at that point. We didn't become Kentucky until 1792. So at that point, we're still part of Virginia. And the Virginia governor is going to be sending these expedition and survey teams to this undeveloped land to see if it's something that he's interested in. We don't have roads to travel on back then, so the way they're going to get here is they're going to follow the herds of millions of buffalo that are also going to be migrating to this area. Now, when the buffalo get here, one of the things you have to figure out how to do is how to cross that Kentucky River. We just talked about the flood. The river runs right back behind our distillery there, right on the banks of the Kentucky River is where our distillery sits. Most of the banks of the Kentucky River are actually limestone cliffs because we sit on one of the world's largest limestone aquifers. The only larger aquifers in the world are Scotland and Ireland. So not a lot of safe places that you can cross the river, but right behind our distillery, there happens to be a big curve in the river. And in that bend, the sand and the silt would build up and it would get shallow, and that's where the buffalo would cross. It became known as the Great Buffalo Crossing. So the buffalo would come in across the river, they're coming through our property here, and they're actually carving out these roadways, these trails that the explorers are gonna follow behind on. We call them trails, Native Americans called them traces, buffalo traces, hence our name. We had a major buffalo trace that ran through our property here. So in 1775, a couple of brothers by the name of Willis and Hancock Lee, following the buffalo, get to this location and they like it here. We got a lot of things going for us here. We got the Kentucky River, which gives us not only water, but gives us transportation. We have fertile soil, hot and humid summers. It's great for growing crops like corn. So they decide they're gonna settle here. 1775, their last name is Lee, so they're gonna call it Leestown. So this becomes Leestown Settlement. Most of the people that live at Leestown, Irish and Scottish. What do you think first thing they did was when they established their settlement? They started making whiskey, right? Got their still going. By 1786, we're very popular. People are going to stop here and resupply before they travel further west. So we have receipts dating back to 1786 showing that we were making whiskey at Leestown and selling whiskey, and we can track that continuous operation all the way to current day. Now, Leestown stays here for about 100 years. During that time, they're really just trying to use up all their corn they're growing, so it's not really about quality, it's about quantity. In 1869, that all changes. 1869, a gentleman by the name of Edmund Haynes Taylor Jr., E.H. Taylor, you guys know that name, right? Sometimes he's on the shelves in here. He's here in Frankfort. He's a politician, he's an aristocrat, but he also has a background in all the areas that you need to know to run a distillery. So he decides to buy the Leestown Distillery, as it's known by now. Not what he wants. He wants to have the most modern, most beautiful distillery in the industry. So he tears Leestown down and builds up OFC, Old Fired Copper, the first modern distillery in this location. Now, he calls it Old Fired Copper for a particular reason. When he studied distillation, he studied it in Europe, Ireland, and Scotland. There, by studying it in there, he learned that if you use copper in your distillation process, everything that touches your distillate, it will remove things called sulfur compounds from that distillate. Now, sulfur compounds are like the stuff that's in, anybody drink red wine? Anybody like red wine? Sulfur compounds are the stuff that's in red wine that gives you a headache, right? It's not the 3 bottles of red wine that we drank. It was the sulfites and the sulfates that did it to us, right? So I tell myself every time. Distillate has the same thing in it. If you have it in your distillate, it makes your whiskey not taste as good. So everything that touches Taylor's distillate is going to be made of copper. It's fermenters, it's still, it's piping, removes those sulfur compounds, makes a great whiskey. Becomes known for his whiskey in the industry. Very expensive whiskey, right? All that copper is very pricey. So he ends up going bankrupt. So we need somebody to come in with some money to help financially back his distillery. And that's how George T. Stagg comes into our history. Because Stagg's a whiskey broker. He's out of St. Louis, and he's been buying and selling Taylor's product for a while. He knows it's a good product. He actually comes in and buys up all of Taylor's outstanding debt. So now he actually owns Taylor's distillery. But he knows Taylor's known in the industry. His name is known. He wants to keep him on. So he says, I'm going to give you 1 share of your distillery back. We're going to call you the vice president. You can run the day-to-day operations. They had this great partnership for about 2 hours. It's going to be like this. They are not going to agree on how to run this distillery. They do make it go for a few years, but by 1886, they decide time to part ways. It's really not working. Stagg buys that share of the distillery back from Taylor, gives Taylor a little money. He goes down the road to a community called Millville, about 20 minutes from here, opens another distillery with his sons. He's going to call it Old Taylor and Sons Distillery. Stagg stays here. We rename the distillery the George T. Stagg Distillery in 1904. A couple of years before that happens, another important person comes into our history. At this point, he's 16 years old and he lives across the road from the distillery on a farm called Rock Hill Farms. Comes over here, they hire him as an office boy. He's going to run office errands. Albert Macon Blanton. Colonel Blanton ends up being here with us for 55 years. Very important person in our history. By 1921, he's learned every job there is to know at the distillery. They named him the president of the George T. Stagg Distillery, which is wonderful. Congratulations, Colonel Blanton. Way to go, right? Welcome to the 18th Amendment. What was the 18th Amendment? Prohibition. Who wants to be president of a distillery if you can't manufacture, sell, or transport alcohol, right? Continuously operating. You guys know how we did it during Prohibition legally? Anybody?
Prescriptions.
Prescriptions, medicine. That's right. He teams with a company out of New York called Shenley. Shinley gets one of the very few medicinal whiskey licenses that are issued during Prohibition. Population of Kentucky during Prohibition, we were two things. We were thirsty and we were sick, chronically ill, right? Worst thing you could be in Prohibition would be healthy. I wake up, I don't feel good, I'm gonna go to the doctor, I'm gonna get a prescription for 1 pint of 100 proof medicinal whiskey. I get 2 refills, 1 for every 10 days, right? So in 30 days, I have 3 pints of medicinal whiskey. I can go to my doctor, I can go to my dentist, I can go to my pharmacist. I can take my kids to the doctor. Kids get prescriptions for medicinal whiskey, right? We had about 2 million people in population during Prohibition here in Kentucky, according to the census. We wrote over 6 million prescriptions for medicinal whiskey in Kentucky. We were very sick, right? But in 1933, it is a miracle because everybody gets better. So we're coming out of Prohibition. We're one of 4 distilleries that have, we're producing whiskey. We've got whiskey that's aging. Colonel Blanton's going to take us into a major expansion. From 1933 to 1953, we're going to go from 14 buildings to 114 buildings. Most of what you're going to see walking around today is from that expansion. This is essentially still Colonel Blanton's distillery. We still use his buildings, we still use his equipment. Now fast forward to 1992. 1992, a company out of New Orleans called Sazerac comes in, they buy the George T. Stagg Distillery, and in 1999 they rebranded us Buffalo Trace, paying homage to the trace that ran through our property. And we just finished up at the end of 2024, last December, our last major expansion. This was a 10-year project for us. Sazerac invested $1.2 billion in Buffalo Trace so that we could double production. So as we walk around today, I'm going to point out some of the stuff that came from that expansion as well. Now, if you think about it, our newest warehouse from the Sazerac expansion is only about 6 years old. I'll point those out to you in a minute. The new still house that we brought online, we didn't bring that online until 2022. So really, everything that you're drinking out of the market right now, outside of maybe a little bit of Benchmark, was made with Colonel Blanton's equipment and aged in Colonel Blanton's warehouses. Those are the ones that were built after Prohibition. You haven't really seen anything from the Sazerac expansion yet. It isn't old enough yet. We still got a few more years for that stuff to age up. But in a couple of years, when that stuff starts hitting the market, that's when you're going to see lots more Buffalo Trace products out there. That's our goal. Get more product out to you guys so that you don't have such a hard time finding it. So, all right, that was about 250 years of history in about 12 minutes. I talk very fast. Just the highlights of our history. There's a lot more to it than that, but that gives you an idea as we walk around today how we got from 1786 to where we are now. And when I start talking about buildings and what era they're from, now you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about. So before we walk around a little bit more into the production side, any questions about that history we talked about? Any questions? All right, let's head this way.